This is a video about what the word mind means, how we use it, and if this is a good idea or not. Hello, this is Wake Up with another video about consciousness, awakening, spiral dynamics, and so on. But this time we'll talk about mind. They're words we use without really fully understanding how complex they are, how prone to misunderstanding they are, and mind is one of them. In other language, you use terms like spirit. In many languages, you don't have a word for mind, it's just spirit or consciousness that we have to use. But still, those are misunderstandable as well. In Sanskrit, we have many words for mind. So there's always a big problem if you translate Sanskrit texts into English or German or French or whatever, because the only word you can use for many other words is mind. Because in India, they have researched consciousness and mind and thus found different aspects, and they gave them different names. But in the West, in Europe and North America, at least the white North America, we've been using mind all the time for all kinds of different things. Our thinking is dual, so we create dual languages. In most languages, you need a subject or an object to make a sentence meaningful. There are exceptions. There used to be some American languages where you don't need a subject, where you can say raining happens. You don't have to say it is raining. Who's supposed to be it? So our language is necessarily warping anything that you're trying to express by it or with it. And this is similar to mind. That's why so many people like Sri Aurobindo and others in India, they tried to find other terms like overmind and supermind and supramental and so on. Or ultra-spiritual, like JP puts it in his funny way, making fun of green and yellow concepts. But this is implying that there's something behind the mind, or better than the mind, beyond the mind. A very good mind or something like that, super mind. Sounds like mega mind, someone who is very intelligent. But what is meant is really something that is not the mind anymore. It feels similar, it feels akin to mind, to thinking, but it's actually something else. It's a higher form or sort of consciousness, a higher stage, but this again is a misconcept because there's nothing higher. It's just a different angle, a different viewpoint. So those authors who use words like supermind and overmind, they were trying to express Sanskrit terms that have been honed to be as correct as possible, as close to the truth as possible for hundreds of years. And now we just call it mind. But what we usually call mind in our day-to-day lives is thinking. And what we usually call consciousness is the opposite of sleep. Sometimes I have the feeling we need kind of a new word for it. All these words are so well trodden already, so overused, so dry by daily unclear usage. So in turquoise, coral and beyond, in less dual states of mind, again we have mind, state of mind, there's not so much thinking anymore. It's not a word that depends on thinking or opinions or beliefs. It's a world of a pure experience, of letting experience happen. But there's not really anything happening. It's just isness or beingness. Yeah? Something is, and we can enjoy and observe it, or lose ourselves in it. There's this old image of a drop that is flowing back into the ocean. And the drop is the mind and the ocean is the supermind. But usually when we use terms like super, it means something is better. This is superlative. Yeah, it's the best. It's not the best. It's just consciousness watching itself. It's a different game. To understand what truth is or what truth could be, we first have to understand what falsehood is. That's the whole point of ego, of Maya, of mind. That it creates a confusion, a distortion, a world upside down like Alice in Wonderland or Through the Looking Glass. It's upside down. In the normal world, what is true seems false and what is false seems true. What is important seems unimportant and what is unimportant seems important. That's Maya. And our normal mind, our ego, our I, is trained to perceive this Maya. It's trained to perceive the falsehood. It's trained to perceive the world as real, while in actual fact it's only a theater play. It's like when you're watching a movie or reading a book and think it's real. It's really happening there. Those guys on the screen, they're really crying. They're really feeling sad or happy. No, they're just actors playing convincingly. And our mind thrives on these vicarious emotions. We want to see people fighting and crying and emotional drama and so on. It gives us a sense of reality, that something is really happening. There's nothing seems more real than emotions or pain. So our egos are drawn to that. It gives them a sense of reality and purpose. It's like playing a computer game. You can get really into it. You can get really addicted to it. But really there's nothing happening. It's a fake reality. It's a virtual reality. A collective virtual reality with lots of minds creating this reality by agreeing on its properties and then calling it reality or truth. But it has no objective reality. It's just interpretation and definition. We call something, I don't know, tree, and agree what we mean with tree and then think it's reality. Or you call yourself Joe or Jane or whatever your name is, and after a while you think that's you, that you are your name. No, it's just a name. Millions of people have the same name. What do you mean when you say, I am John? Most people don't even say, I'm called John or I'm called Janet. They say, I am Jennifer. I am Marcus. What nonsense. And we're saying this daily, not realizing that we're working ourselves deeper and deeper into this hallucination, into this hypnosis, mass hypnosis. Repetition, illusion, distraction. Watch my video on that. That's how things work. And especially by repetition, by repeating things every day, like a mantra, we create a fake continuity. And this is with all words. We create words to describe something, and at some point the words become more powerful than the thing they were created to describe. And then we wonder what that means: mind and ego and consciousness and overmind and supramental. They're just words, they're nothing. They don't mean anything by themselves. We gave them meaning, and we can give them meaning and change the meaning and so on. Like cool, for example. Cool just means something is cold. But during the last decades, we were using it as something positive, something good, or relaxed. And something like this we have to do with mind also. Or with I. I is one of the most horrible words. Just after but. But is the most superfluous word ever created. But I is also very tricky, because we need it in most languages to talk. You could say the body mind called John is experiencing this and that. But if you would say things like that all the time, people would think you're bonkers. So just to be still intelligible, so that other people can understand what you're saying, you let yourself be forced to say things like I and mind, and pretend that everyone means the same thing by them. Every time I use I get some kind of jolt, because I know this is not what I actually want to say, but I have to say it several times, at least once a sentence or so that it is intelligible. I have to say. There's no I, and there's nothing anyone has to do. So one way, of course, is to just shut up. That's what many people do when they reach choral or when they wake up. They just shut up about it because they know there's no point in talking about it. But we have to share experiences somehow. It seems to be part of our humanity to share, so that we can talk about abstract things like love or God or consciousness. But they're only abstract to a certain point. They're possible to be experienced. And then they're not abstract anymore. They're very practical. But how to express them without using words which are in themselves misleading and wrong. Words that were created to describe a false reality as if it were real. It's like you were talking in computer code language. It's only helpful, it's only useful when you talk about computer programming. It's an IT language, it's not a language for everything. And also the way we usually talk, it's not a language that fits with expressing waking up or enlightenment or second-tier experiences. So one can get creative and use terms like isness and beingness and happiness, because it just is. It's not really that it is happening. It just is there. The concept of time is also worked into our language and our thinking and our minds, especially the concept of linear time. But that is not really there. It's the being that is there. But being prior to time and prior to matter and prior to separation and duality. Somehow we have to think in terms of black and white. But we cannot say that which is prior to black and white, which always has been prior to black and white, which is still there in a subtle way beyond black and white and expresses itself in black and white. Or at least it expresses itself in our minds as two different things. or several different things. Our mind is a sorting hat, sorting mechanism, shelf. It has to judge, it has to evaluate, to see, to discriminate if something is similar or different. It's a collection device. It's a data bank. But it is not really meant for thinking, for purposeful thinking, for useful thinking, or thinking about truth or reality. Our mind is just a computer trying to do its work with a binary system. But once the binary system is confronted with information that is not binary, you come to a stop. It's like one of these Zen koans. It's not possible to be understood by the dual mind. But there seem to be mind-like faculties, different faculties, which can understand non-dual things, non-linear time, endless possibilities, or even infinity. Like the mind cannot understand really that space is expanding. In the view of physicists, of cosmologists, space is expanding, but it's not expanding into another space. It's creating itself by expansion. The space between the stars is expanding by itself. It doesn't need an action to do that. It doesn't need gravity or Big Bang or so. It's just expanding. Expansion happens. It doesn't even need a God or divine being to cause or will that expansion. But we want that. We want that there's a higher consciousness, a God that is starting all this and making all this. A benevolent God. But that's only our language and our mind creating this. Because we look for solutions that are understandable in a dual way, in a limited way. And then when we come up with these ludicrous theories to describe truth and reality in some completely inadequate way, then after a few years, we think that theory is reality. We forget that it has been created to describe reality, and then we think it is reality and treat it as such. Words don't really have any meaning. Do you know that feeling when you read something or say something or hear something, then suddenly you don't understand the words anymore, even if it is in your mother language, your mother tongue. The words do not seem to make sense anymore. Because they don't. They're just words. They do not have any meaning by themselves, in and of themselves. Words don't have meaning in and of themselves, nor does reality really. The world is empty and meaningless. We give it meaning. And our mind is like a radio. It's receiving all kinds of ideas from all around us and filtering them for us. So we can only consciously perceive a small part of it. Because reality is too vast for the mind to understand. It cannot. So, is there some kind of supermind or overmind which can understand the complexity of reality, the vastness, the non-duality? If yes, why call it mind? Some teachers have tried to avoid that by just calling it that. I am that, for example. That. Because you can't describe it any further, it's just there. Some call it Satchitananda, bliss. But why bliss, actually? What's so blissful about it? The bliss is, you could just call it fascination too. It's a fascination, it's the kind of fascination when you're looking in a mirror. or when you watch a great movie or read a good book. And bliss is not felt by the mind. It's some kind of other faculty that is experiencing bliss. For example, when you see a beautiful sunset or sunrise or northern lights. Okay, all I'm saying here is be careful with the words you use. They have power, and they mostly have the power to lull you into sleep. Mind and the languages created by the mind have the danger of self-hypnosis, distraction, repetition, illusion. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the video with your friends if you liked it. Tell me in the comments below what you think about this whole mind and overmind word obsession and how to solve the problem of communication, of communicating the undescribable. How do you solve it in your daily life? Thanks for watching. See you soon.